West Ham Network, things are getting interesting. Jacob Steinberg has just posted saying that West Ham have officially agreed a £25 million deal to sign Palmeiras winger Luis Guilherme. So stay tuned because we are going to be giving you an exclusive insight into how he could benefit West Ham, how he plays, everything you need to know, as well as running you through everything that you can expect from the deal as we know so far. Yes, West Ham Network. I hope you're all well. It's Holly. If you're having a good day, if you like this news, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the West Ham Network. What an exciting evening. So it's being reported by very reputable sources now that a deal has been agreed for Palmeiras winger Luis Guilherme. So we've spoken about him a lot on the channel in the last few days, but it looks as though things are progressing really nicely. This means that the 18-year-old will be the first signing of the Julian Lopetegui era if everything goes ahead as expected. So for anybody that doesn't know, Guilherme is one of the best young talents in Brazil, and he has also had interest from the Saudi Pro League. But we have remained hopeful that as a talented and ambitious young player, that he would be tempted to try his hand in the Premier League and not be tempted by the lucrative deals that may be out there for the Saudi League. So poor Fabrizio Romano was absolutely traumatized after the premature, here we go, shall we call it, for Bruno. So he actually posted earlier today saying that we had agreed a deal verbally with medicals to take place in England next week, adding that there were some final steps to go before we get the here we go. So obviously he's absolutely terrified of now giving a premature here we go, because you can't be doing that twice in the same week, not as a very reputable source. It just can't happen. But now Steinberg is also reporting that we have agreed the £25 million deal. It's being said that we will pay Palmeiras £19.5 million, which is 23 million euros, plus another 7 million euros in add-ons. And on top of that, there is a 20% sell-on clause, which basically means that we will pay 20% of any profit, most likely, to Palmeiras if we sell Guilherme. But that isn't an issue unless he becomes incredibly valuable, which again is only a good thing because it means we will have found a hidden gem. So you'll see that while this isn't an extortionate amount of money, it's the risk that you have to take when trying to find untapped talent from anywhere in the world, but including Brazil. And this is what happened with Vinicius Jr. With some great scouting and development, Real Madrid have ended up with an incredible player that is worth goodness knows how much. And that's exactly what we're looking to do. And this is what Tim Steiner's been brought in to do, right? It is to find the talent that's out there, find the ones that could and would fit, and then we develop them in-house to make them the perfect player for West Ham. That's the plan anyway. But what can we expect to see from Guilherme? And why is this signing one that Tim Steichen is so keen on? Well, good question, Holly. I had the absolute pleasure of speaking with Tim Vickery this week, the man who knows everything about Brazilian football. If you don't know who he is, just listen to what he has to say in a second and you'll see what I mean. He just lives and breathes South American football. He knows everything about every single player and is so passionate about it. And it's so interesting to hear because the insights that he has and the knowledge about such specific things gets me very excited. It's honestly such an interesting interview. So I spoke to him about what Guilherme could bring to West Ham, as well as how he would transition from the Brazilian League to the Premier League and so much more. And here is how that conversation went. Hello, West Ham Network, it's Holly. Now, we know that West Ham have been linked with numerous Brazilian players before the transfer window has even opened over here. And today I'm joined by the man some call Wikipedia. He is the South American football correspondent for BBC Sport. So I'm delighted to be joined by the brilliant Tim Vickery to get his expert insight into the players that we have been linked with already. Tim, thank you so much for joining us on West Ham Network. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Yeah, my pleasure. Some people call me Wikipedia. Some people call me other things that we can't possibly repeat on a family show such as your own. But very, very happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
We'll stick with Wikipedia for tonight then. We've got to start with the biggest transfer news that has been going around at the moment. So Luis Guilherme looks to be an incredibly promising 18-year-old that West Ham is said to be in quite advanced talks with now. It's been reported that West Ham and Palmeiras are at the stage of structuring a deal, and it sounds as though it could be advancing quite well. But given that not too many West Ham fans will have heard of him until recently, what can you tell us about Guilherme, and what do you think he could bring to West Ham if he were to sign?
Well, he's only got one goal.
Yeah.
It was a cracker. It was an absolute cracker, and it won a game. So, as is obvious when you're interested in someone who's 18 years of age, you're buying much, much more on promise than you are on reality. And really, I think the marker for so many of these deals is Vinicius Junior.
Yeah.
Because when Real Madrid bought him, they couldn't take him until he was 18, but they bought him at the age of 16. And he hadn't played a senior game, and they spent 40 million on him. And it seemed like madness. And it's turned out to be an extraordinary bargain. And that kind of deal, I think, has changed the market. On the European clubs, they wanted the players young. But from the success of that one, they want them at 18 if they can. You know, if it's rare, there is a case that we might get to in a minute for players who get over the 22, 23 mark. It's rare then if they're still in South America for European clubs to be interested. So that they want them as young as possible, which inevitably means we are talking about promise rather than reality. In the case of Luis Guilherme, Palmeiras have so much promise. Their youth work has been doing such remarkable stuff. You know, they've got Endrick, who's 18, who's just about to go to Real Madrid. They've got Estevan, who's 17, who looks like he's joining Chelsea in a year's time. And it means that Luis Guilherme has been a little bit overshadowed. But he is very, very interesting. Now, I saw that before that, West Ham were said to be interested in another winger from across Sao Paulo, Wesley at Corinthians. Yes. And the interesting thing about both of these, and they're very different in the sense that Wesley is right-footed and cuts in, and Luis Guilherme is left-footed. But the thing that they have in common is that these aren't lightweights. These are physical. And Luis Guilherme is not particularly tall, but he's physically built. He is extremely quick, lightning pace, left foot. Hasn't had that many opportunities to play. I mean, Palmeiras won the Brazilian Championship last year, so it's not a side that's struggling. So he's had to take his opportunities where they come. The coach, it's a European coach, Portuguese coach, very, very good coach, a kind of young version of Jose Mourinho. Abel Ferreira thinks the world of him. And where he's played most of his football wide right, using that pace down the flanks. I think Abel really thinks he's probably better played a little bit infield.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I don't know if you saw that one goal that he scored in stoppage time against Independiente del Valle. But he's got a kick like a mule. So I think what the Palmeiras coach has been trying to get out of him is, rather than having him from the flanks, have him a little bit infield from the half space and then cutting in, where he's got more opportunity to bear down on goal.
Yes, that's interesting as well, because where we've got Bowen and Kudus on the right, there are quite a few questions over whether Guilherme could play more centrally or even on the left, or whether that would be sort of wasting his talent, I suppose.
Well, the big thing here with the adaptation between English football and Brazilian football is that in Brazil, the defensive lines tend to play much, much deeper. So there's much more space on the field. You know, and that zone infield, that's where the marking is tightest. So it's tough for a player of his type to pick up the ball with acceleration space there, you know. So that would be interesting, and it would be very, very much a case of West Ham developing him slowly. I don't think this is a player who's going to go straight in and make an immediate impact. This is one when you're building a little bit for the future. We saw slightly similar this year with Crystal Palace, with Mateus França at Palace. Now, they've got so much talent there that exploded Crystal Palace, that it ended up not mattering that much, that they didn't get much out of Mateus França this season. But I don't see that as a failure at all on the part of the player. That was exactly what I would have expected from Mateus França, because he didn't have a great deal behind him. You know, a few more games than Luis Guilherme. So, you know, from a player operating in that position, there's a huge learning curve ahead. And that will be the case with Luis Guilherme if he does make the move. But if you're a defender facing him, you're going to be a little bit intimidated by that blistering pace that he's got.
Very interesting. And I suppose these are the pros and cons, aren't there, of almost finding this untapped talent and getting them early, and then being able to develop them is a key part of actually being able to turn them into a player that will work in the Premier League and will adapt to play at clubs like West Ham. So there you have it. That is what Tim Vickery had to say about Guilherme. So it looks as though he could be a very exciting talent. But again, it's going to be what Tim has seen in him that's going to be most interesting, that we think that we can really foster and turn into something that's going to be beneficial for West Ham. But again, first signing, getting business done nice and early is something that we've wanted to see for a very, very long time at West Ham. Tim's starting to be out in Brazil for a while now, and we've been hoping that he's going to come back with someone. It looks as though he was refusing to come home until he'd actually got somebody from Brazil. So could this be the player? It certainly looks as though it could be. Everything's looking good so far. I know it doesn't matter until everything's signed. You've got the player in that picture with the shirt. But until then, all we can do is look at the facts. And the facts are that we have agreed a verbal deal, which is brilliant progress. So there you have it. The deal is not yet done, but it has been agreed. It's another step in the right direction towards West Ham's first signing of the summer transfer window. And the transfer window has not even opened yet. That is the maddest thing of all of this. Usually we're waiting till all the good players are gone 3-4 weeks in before you start to even hear us being close with anything. So the fact that we are just doing business early is really, really good. And I'd like to think that we're obviously going to be doing the same behind the scenes for other players, getting those discussions going, speaking to agents, all the things that you need to do to get this into place and to make this a really positive transfer window. We know as well that it's not going to happen overnight, but I'm feeling really positive about this. So exciting times. So drop us a comment down below with your thoughts on Guilherme and let us know if you're excited about this potential signing. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you're new around here, make sure you subscribe to the West Ham Network. You wouldn't want to be missing out on all the content that we have coming your way. That is all from me for now, but have a brilliant day. And until next time, you know how we're going to sign off. Come on, you Irons.